What do you think are the most prominent forces that are going to shape tomorrow's decision?
Well, I think that the OPEC countries are all going to be looking at the issue going on in Venezuela. Clearly, 1 million barrels a day has been taken off of the market there, and obviously it can go even worse than here. In our balances, we expect 800,000 to 900,000 barrels a day from about 1.3 right now. So Venezuela is one. Libya is another. Obviously, the situation there has gotten worse over the last week or so. Production there is only about 600,000 to 700,000 barrels a day. So they're looking at disruptions. The other issue, of course, coming into next year is the question of how much oil comes off with respect to Iranian supply. And I don't think that they have a good answer to that. I don't think any of us have a good answer to that. And that is a key question on how much oil they decide to put back on. But they're not really going to know that until the end of this year, when the wind down period becomes, when we reach that end of the wind down period.
So, Michael, give us a little bit more insight on that. What is the process that they run these numbers through to get a better understanding on what to boost supply by? Is it just pick a number, any number, or is there a real process here that comes out with, say, 600,000 barrels a day?
Well, so yeah, in our view, we think that in order to keep the market balanced, we think that they're going to need to add, at the end of the day, maybe 600,000 to 700,000 barrels a day. But I think what they're discussing right now is a range from 1 to 1.8 million barrels a day of prorated supply additions across the 24 countries, the OPEC countries and those that are the non-OPEC countries that are party to this declaration of cooperation. And there's no there's no answer to that yet. But they're clearly looking at the disruptions that have taken place so far and the state of the market. They had technical committee meetings on Tuesday. They had a big seminar with lots of different producers and consumer countries talking about the state of the market. And they're going to take all of that into account when they come up with their decision. But I do expect that they're going to come up with an agreement, and we will see OPEC supply, at least from the Saudis, Kuwaitis, Emiratis, up at least 600,000 to 700,000 barrels a day through the end of the year.
Michael,
and in our view, that will act as a kind of brake on higher oil prices.
I'm just trying to get an understanding as well. What is the nightmare outcome that could bring a November 2014 situation? Is there one? Does one exist? What is the extreme tail risk here?
Well, I think the extreme tail risk is no agreement at all. It undermines the 2 years of trust and credibility that this organization has built up. But what you have to remember, it's kind of the opposite than in the case of November 2014, whereas if they come up with no agreement, then the Saudis and the Russians will likely unanimously, or at least on their own, start to raise output. But I think that even then, if they raise output, it's not that much. So either way, it's likely to be an outcome that is more positive to prices. I think the key downside risk right now is that associated with the global economy. And that is something that gives us a lot of concern as we look into 2019.